Hi, everyone. I'm Trevor Wall, producer of the film Slanted, and welcome to Fantasy Film Fest.
How you and Amy Wong met?
Maybe back in 2017, so we've known each other quite a long time. We originally met through her manager at the time, someone named Cassie Duffy, was just a friend of mine, and she shared with me Amy's short film that she made in school. It's just a short film called A Natural that I really loved, and I was just really impressed by Amy's filmmaking and wanted to meet with her. And this at the time I was at a different management production company. I was like a junior executive and just sort of wanting to like just meet filmmakers that I liked as I sort of and start the early stages of my producing career. So I just, Amy and I met and we just really hit it off and really connected, not just on a work related sort of, filmmaker executive relationship, but also just as friends. Like we liked the same movies and subsequently after that meeting, just always sort of stayed in touch just as friends and wanting to kind of just go see movies together or find different ways to potentially sort of work together on a project. And then it wasn't until I believe maybe around 2020, so like a few years later, she called me with just like the log line idea essentially for Slanted. She said, I have this idea about a high school sort of satire movie about Chinese American high schooler turning white to like feel popular, feel seen, and feel welcomed. And I was like, that sounds crazy. Like that's a really crazy idea. And I really like weird and crazy things and stories. So I was like, we should sort of flesh this out and develop it.
Do you remember how it went from there, from this log line presentation, or was this the whole pitch? How did she develop it? Maybe could you say a little bit more?
Basically, so from that sort of like phone call, sort of she shared with me just like that one sentence sort of concept, I thought it was great. I was like, let's sort of work on it and develop it together. So we essentially, her and I, really in tandem and lockstep, in a way that's very different than me as a producer has worked on other projects. We really worked hand in hand in sort of developing and shaping that story. Finding the characters, even like the character of Brenda, who plays Joan's best friend, was like a character we went through the development process and decided to add in. Centering it around prom and prom being winning prom queen was something that we also really shaped and decided and talked about. Actually came from I watched the film Drop Dead Gorgeous, which I think is from the 1990s. I want to say it's a very very fun film. Recommend it. It was actually after seeing that movie and seeing a movie where it takes place at a school, it like prom is kind of such a big emphasis and focal point, is where we sort of had the idea, shared with her about centering it around prom and how that can sort of connect to the Americana-ness and sort of the themes that we want to sort of say about American culture, and how prom can really embodies a lot of those things.
Is there also a personal link to this time that you felt while writing?
Yes, there was. I think that's one thing for both Amy and I with this project on a very sort of deep and personal level. I think she and I both really bonded over. It's obviously we're two very different people. She's Chinese Australian and I'm biracial Black American, but we both shared similar experiences of for her in Australia and for myself in America being feeling like others in predominantly sort of white spaces and white neighborhoods and white cultures and white high schools specifically. Both of us had that sort of shared experience of feeling very isolated and feeling very alone, and really feeling like you just have this desire to want to belong, and feeling a bit of like an outsider. We shared a lot of sort of those commonalities, and it was very personal for both of us in terms of the story of Slanted, also sort of being that sort of high school experience, of someone that goes to a PWI predominantly white institution and feeling that sort of isolation, and all you want to do is really just try to belong, because when you're a high schooler, especially a teenager, when you're just trying to figure yourself out and you're wanting to just be cool, you care so much about what other people think. It can really sort of affect your psyche, specifically on that sort of cultural identity perspective for some people, and that's what Amy and I and our experiences were really connected with and bonded to.
Was it the problem with finding financing? How was it difficult to convince the rest of the crew or the people you needed to?
It is such a bold and sort of provocative movie that there could have definitely been a lot more hurdles and struggles in getting that financing. But we were very, very fortunate in my, the producer Mark Ankner that I worked with primarily and myself had a pre-existing relationship with Tideline Entertainment, which was a company that sort of partnered with us at the very end of our first film, Pony Boy, that we did, and through that relationship, we shared with them the slanted script, introduced them to Amy, and they were definitely interested in wanting to champion and support different stories, indie stories, first time feature directorial storytellers and filmmakers like Amy, and then the cast and crew. Honestly, they really fell in lockstep, primarily from just the place of really understanding where Amy was coming from. It's a very personal story for Amy. It's obviously not exact, obviously, Amy didn't undergo any kind of surgery or something like that. But those feelings, of just deep rooted emotions that Joan experiences are very sort of relatable and really tied to sort of experiences that Amy had in her personal life.
People get annoyed and offended for everything these days or any time. Do you think, or did you think of the film backlashing, or did you prepare yourself to reactions that maybe will be not as positive?
For me personally, I did a little bit, and still do, honestly, as sort of we are now, post festival premiere, talking, about with distribution companies and sort of seeing, what it looks like to have a more wider release. I still have those because it's natural. It's like you said, it's very provocative, sort of in its nature and sort of at the very core. But for me personally, I'm really drawn and attracted to stories that aren't afraid to sort of ruffle any feathers or make a statement. I think for me personally, I would say as a producer, I'd much rather make a film that is going to resonate with a large portion of people, but also some people off the wrong way. Than to produce a film that just like doesn't really have much of a lasting impact on anybody. It just kind of comes and goes and is forgotten.
As far as remember, you have mostly interior scenes or a lot of interior scenes. Can you tell a little bit more about the conditions of the production? Were you forced to it? Was it more about because of the budget, or what? What when does concept and needs come together?
I mean, everything was definitely down to budget, of course, right? And it was a very, very small budget, at least for the scale of this movie. When I say scale, like yes, it does. It is. There are a lot of interiors, but it's also one that we're taking sort of big genre swings, right? Like we have this whole sort of surgical center that does this crazy surgery, and there are aspects of it that kind of feel like they need to be a bit bigger and larger, that was quite challenging to do on a very tight budget. But it just took a lot of ingenuity, creative problem solving, especially from our production designer Julie, and just trying to find the right locations when we were shooting in Atlanta. And it was yeah, really challenging to sort of navigate, but I think we definitely achieved and got the things that we needed to do, and overall to sort of serve the story given the budget and the money and the things that we had.
And on the aesthetics of the film, did you work together with Amy too, or was that her part more, or
As a producer, I'm typically as creatively involved as the filmmaker, allows me to be, because I also want to be very respectful of, Amy is the filmmaker. This is her vision, and I'm not someone that's going to try to come in and control her vision or direct her on directing essentially her movie. So I was definitely very collaborative during that process, but I would say the overall sort of look and aesthetic, I would give primarily a lot of that to Amy working with her department heads, right? So Amy working with Ed, who was our fantastic DP, who I also worked with on Pony Boy, really capturing sort of the look and feel of that movie, of Slanted, cinematically, which I know they pulled, references to like Andrea Arnold and different things that sort of grounded the movie, which was a new and different approach for a satire like this. But they really sort of established that look together. And then subsequently, or in tandem, Amy and, like I said, our production designer, Julie, really establishing and creating the aesthetic of the world. A lot of the crazy sort of satirical signage and things like that that were sort of in the background and around, and was all, and even, down to our costume designer, Michelle, Amy and Michelle working on sort of the costuming and, the subtle color theory within the costuming, of the reds and the whites and the blues, and tying it to Americana and all of these things. And then, obviously, the incredible makeup work that Sarah, our head of makeup, and the whole team doing the prosthetics, really sort of getting the aesthetics of that, getting those things down when, obviously things get a little crazy at the end. So
As I recall it, you do most of the effects by hand, let's say. You don't use so much special effects, right?
that's correct. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, we had incredible makeup and prosthetics team. When we're shooting down in Atlanta, that yeah, we were able to do a lot of it practically, which was really really fun.
As for the title of the film, was it from the beginning clear that you would use slanted?
Yeah, Amy, that was Amy's title. It started day one and has stayed since. And I've always really loved it. I've always really loved it. Also kind of the bold, provocative nature a little bit, just like the movie, in the ways that sometimes that word in that context can be sort of said derogatorily to people, but really taking it and sort of spinning it on its head, and also just like the slanted, off kilter nature of the movie and of itself, and it doing sort of very weird and different things. And this is, not your typical high school movie, basically. For all of those ways, and just like the one word punch of it all, I always really, really loved Slanted when Amy sort of came up with that being the title, and it's just stayed ever since.
You traveled already to a few festivals in at South by Southwest. You won a very interesting and very big prize. Can you share a little bit about the reactions you already had? What were the most things that you were most happy of?
Primarily, it's been from that group that I've mentioned about, that just really felt seen and understood. There were some audience members that I've spoken to, that it made them really want to have conversations with their parents a little bit about, just like their culture, and especially like their time in high school, and feeling like they weren't the most proud of their culture. It really sort of tapped into, I think, a lot of people's uncomfortable insecurities, that it's also just uncomfortable to really kind of be open and share about, to sort of, admit to yourself that you may not have really loved a major aspect of who you are for a certain period of time. It's deeply uncomfortable, and I think it's a shame that if people have felt that way, there never was any sort of platform or some or media, art form medium, to even talk about it. So even just sort of having a movie like this, that's openly sort of talking about those feelings, a lot of people just, yeah, really kind of felt seen and understood by it, in some of those ways. And it's those people that I've really been spoken to, and really been feeling a lot of warm and positivity in just the ways, that this movie really sort of connected with them on those personal levels.
You wish to say something or to add something on your side?
Is that it truly is, in a lot of ways, a miracle, that a movie does get made, especially independent movies or lower budget movies. It's really, really hard, and a lot of things can go wrong. A lot of things do go wrong, and it can be incredibly stressful on an entire team to kind of put together. And it's, by the end of it, just like it takes a lot of little things to go right, and a lot of little miracles to make a movie happen. So not just our movie, but just, all movies. I truly see them in a way that, it's just a miracle that it exists, and I'm just really sort of lucky and fortunate to have been able to make one.